This college student's car started to make a weird noise like well, this is no need garage, and student loans ain't cheap, so let's help her out. Hi, it's me again, and this noise was diagnosed as a bad wheel bearing, which could cost a ton of money in labor at a normal shop. And not everybody has that kind of money, so that's why we're going to hook it up for her. First, you're going to take off the wheels. You can take off the axle nut here, as well as the brake calipers and the brake caliper bracket. And then there's this stupid thing. It's a screw the manufacturers install to keep the rotor in place. I hate these, and they're not needed after initial car assembly. I don't have the proper tool to do this, and when they were Phillips head, they can strip easy, which I did. Now there's different ways to get them out after stripping. I prefer the old chisel and hammer. I hammer a groove into the screw until I'm able to rotate it counterclockwise. Sometimes it won't happen though until you give it the old death stare. Now be mindful of the threads of the wheel studs, as well as your knuckles. You hit either one, it's going to be a bad day. And after you put the fear of God into that screw, claim your victory. Unscrew it, throw it in the trash. Now we're going to remove the brake rotor, unbolt the bottom ball joint, and disconnect the knuckle assembly from the lower control arm. This will allow us to then slide the axle out of the hub in the knuckle. Look how much play this bearing has. I think we found our culprit. This is where we get some special tools. I'm using a hub and bearing press kit to remove the hub out of the knuckle and bearing assembly. You could rent this at your local parts store. Next, we got to take the circlip out of there. There's some special circlip pliers, but with these I could just use normal needle nose. Just be mindful that it could hurt if it springs out on you. Now we're going to press the old bad bearing out and press the new one in. Now the bearing is going to have two different sides to it if it has ABS. It could be labeled like this one is, but just in case, you can always check for the magnetic end with a small screwdriver. The magnet faces where the sensor is. Now once that bearing is bottomed out, you're just going to get the C-clip and put it right back in. Make sure the groove that it goes in is nice and clean, so it sits flush. Some bearing kits come with a new hub, so you don't have to do this next part. But the hub that we pulled out still has a piece of the bearing snugged onto it, so we got to cut that thing out.
Yeah, baby.
You cut it just deep enough, but not all the way through, so you can crack it with the old hammer and chisel. You can use some pry bars to pry it off of the hub. Once the bearing race is off of the hub and you double check that the hub is nice and smooth, you just press it in until it bottoms out. Now we're ready to put the axle back in the hub. It may take some wiggling and jiggling to get it in there, but it'll go. Now put on that new axle nut and send it home. Make sure to torque it to factory spec. Click. Now some axle nuts actually use a cotter pin, but this one you literally just chisel a little indentation into it. You'll see the spot on the axle where you chisel it in. Time to zip the ball joint back into place. Now this car is also going to be getting some new brakes while we're in there. I like to put the rotor on backwards first, as a second set of hands to hold the rotor while I spray it down. New rotors come smothered in a film that protects. You want to be sure to clean all that off before assembly. You always gotta lube those pins. Does this make you uncomfortable? What if I get closer? But seriously, if these brake pins are dry, then your brakes won't apply correctly. So go ahead and install the miscellaneous brake hardware, clips and stuff. Install the bracket, and I like to lube the back of the pad to help with noise reduction. Basically anywhere that's metal and metal contact, to include the little ears on the side, just not on the pad surface. Once everything's nice and tight, throw your wheel on, torque your lugs to spec, and go for a drive.